write a winning DSP Recognition Award nomination.
Hello, my name is Catherine Burland and I'm the Director of Public Policy here at Anchor. Welcome to How to Write a Winning DSP Recognition Award Nomination. You know your DSP is a rock star, but it's hard for the judges reading nominations to see that unless you present your nominee in the best light. We get hundreds of nominations every year, and honestly, a lot of them sound pretty similar. In this training, I'll give you all the information you need to write a great nomination and make sure that your DSP really stands out in that crowd. We've made a few changes to the process this year to streamline things and make it simpler. In this training, I'm going to guide you through the 3 easy steps to writing a great nomination. Are you ready? Let's begin.
There are 3 steps to writing a great nomination. Step 1 is to plan. Think about what you want to say and gather together all the information that you need. Step 2 is to write. I'm going to help you understand how to best tell a compelling story that will really get the judge's attention. And step 3 is to submit using our easy online form. Before we talk about what makes a great nomination, here are some important dates to keep in mind. We will start accepting nominations on September 14th, kicking off DSP Recognition Week, but you have until December 14th to get your nominations in. That's 3 whole months away, but don't put it off until the last minute. Writing a good nomination takes time, so make sure to give yourself plenty of time to think about, write, and polish your final entry. The deadline will not be extended, so plan ahead. Once we have all the nominations in, our judging committee, which is comprised of Anchor staff and current and former DSPs, will read and consider all the entries. We get hundreds of nominations, so it takes us some time to read them all. Once we have met to identify finalists from all states, we will meet again to select one national recipient from the best of the best. We'll tell the nominators and the executive directors of the recipient agencies on February 5th who the recipients will be. The public announcement will come a little later, on April 4th, because oftentimes agencies want to plan their own events and press releases celebrating their exceptional DSPs. And then the big event will happen in May, in conjunction with Anchor's annual conference. We will hold an awards ceremony recognizing each state recipient and our national recipient for 2016. One thing to keep in mind is that each agency is limited to 3 nominations per state per year. You may want to coordinate with your supervisor to ensure that your agency does not exceed this limit, as only the first 3 nominations received are considered. Step 1, planning. You want to think about what you want to say. Take a look at the nomination form. Think of stories that you can tell that demonstrate each of the criteria. Ask yourself, what do I want the judges to remember about my DSP after they read the nomination? When we're sitting around at a table discussing nominations, what stories are we going to remember? Gather together the requested information about your nominee and their agency. And most importantly, don't leave this for the last minute. I want to take a minute and talk about the affirmation letter that you'll attach to your nomination. Entries are required to include an affirmation letter from the individual served or his or her family member. Although it is not weighted as heavily as the other criteria in the nomination, a strong affirmation letter can often be the deciding factor between 2 great candidates, so don't let this letter be an afterthought. You can ask someone to prepare an affirmation letter before you even get to the rest of the nomination. Quick tip is to give the letter writer some guidance based on his or her communication ability. Let them know that the judges love to read stories about great experiences that the DSP has helped them have, not just about what a great person the DSP is. Okay, you've decided who you want to nominate and thought about a few things you want to say about them. Now let's talk about step 2, actually writing the nomination. First, let's talk about what you'll find on the form. You will see several fields to enter contact information about your nominee, yourself, and your agency. It is important that we have accurate and complete information here so that we can let you know if your nominee is selected, and also so we can reach out to the appropriate congressional office so they can pass on their congratulations to your DSP as well. We use the information you provide in this nomination to order awards and for publication in our Recognizing Excellence magazine. Please make sure that you have spelled your nominee's name correctly. Now, let's go over what the questions are on the nomination form. There are 6 categories, and as you'll see, they are each weighted a little differently. For each question, you have a 150-word limit. Don't think that writing more makes a better entry. It's not about how much you write, but what you say that will earn points. The first category up is advocacy, weighted heaviest at 25%. For this category, we want you to provide specific examples of the DSP's advocacy activities that have affected change on behalf of people with disabilities. This can be anything from advocating one-on-one on behalf of the individual to being part of a larger call to action. Most importantly, show us what your DSP has done to make a difference, big or small, in the life of the person he or she serves. The next category is relationships, weighted at 20%. For this category, we want you to provide examples that demonstrate the relationships the DSP has developed with the individual he or she supports. You can use this category to tell us about the things the DSP has done to help the individual foster relationships with other people as well. Helping individuals form friendships with others is something we love to read about. Next up is creativity, also weighted at 20%. Here, we want you to tell us about times that the DSP has been creative in individualizing supports and services provided. Again, this can be something big or something small. What's important is the impact it had on the individual served. Our next category is to select one NA DSP tenet that the DSP exemplifies. There are 9 tenets, but for this question you can just choose one. This question is worth 15% of the total score. The 9 tenets are 1. Person-centered supports, 2. Promoting physical and emotional well-being, 3. Integrity and responsibility, 4. Confidentiality, 5. Justice, fairness, and equity, 6. Respect, 7. Relationships, 8. Self-determination, and 9. Advocacy. Now is a good time to mention that on the nomination form, there is a link to an FAQs document that explains more about each of these tenets and can also be a reference for you as you prepare your nomination. The next category is additional accomplishments. Here's your opportunity to tell us anything else that you think we should know about your DSP that doesn't fit neatly into one of the other categories. Don't use this category to give us the DSP's life story, unless it is relevant. What judges are looking for are stories that show how your DSP has really made an impact on the person or people he or she serves. And finally, you will attach an affirmation letter, which is worth 10% of the total score. It's important to write a thoughtful entry for each criteria. We can't award points if you leave a blank, so make sure you don't do that. We also look at and judge each criteria independently, so if you include everything in just one category, we won't be able to split the score between other categories, which could mean that your nomination won't get the consideration your DSP deserves. Now that we've gone over the criteria on the nomination form, let's turn our attention to how you tell the stories to put your DSP in the best light and make sure they really shine for the judges. We find that there are 2 types of nominations, those that show and those that tell. Don't just tell us how great your DSP is, we want you to show us why your DSP deserves special recognition for the great work that they do. We get a lot of entries that talk about how dedicated the DSP is, how hard they work, how much the people they serve love them. This is all fantastic, but it doesn't give us a lot to go on when we're trying to select our finalists, because everyone who is getting nominated works hard, is dedicated, and has great personal relationships with the people they support. Lots of people supported call their DSP mom. Lots of people pull extra shifts. Lots of people go above and beyond every day. We need you to show us what makes your nominee different from everyone else. Here are some examples that we often see in nominations. Think about if you were judging these nominations, who would you make a selection if this is all the information you had? You'd want more. You'd want stories that support these statements and show these things that you're telling us. Telling a good story is as easy as 1, 2, 3. A showing entry will first describe the trait, then describe the action, and finally tell us what happened because of it. In other words, end with a "so what?" End by telling us how the action led to the result. Remember to use this pattern for every story you tell, and it'll help your DSP shine. Let's look at how we can strengthen some of the descriptions from before. So we start with, Jane is an incredible leader and advocate. That's great, but too many entries stop there. You need to follow it up with a story that shows this. What has she done that showed you that she's a leader and an advocate? Let's make it stronger. She demonstrated these skills when she organized a petition drive to get the city to add a public bus stop near the individual's house. And then that's not enough. You have to end with the so what? So now AB can ride the bus to her job instead of needing someone to drive her all the time. See how that has three parts? The trait, the action, and the outcome. Let's go on to another example. Now let's take John. John works hard at both his jobs but still finds time to be a great father to his kids. As a judge, I need more. I want to see why you believe that this is the case. You can do that by giving me an example and telling me a story. And remember, you always want to focus on the individual served. So making this stronger, CJ had a goal to lose weight and be more active, so John enlisted his own sons to put together a community kickball team that they can all be a part of. It's now a Sunday afternoon tradition for John, his boys, their neighbor, and CJ to go out and play in the field. The kids have a blast spending time with their dad, and CJ loves being part of the action. Now this is a great story that shows how John balances his professional and his home life. You want to draw a picture for the judges with your words. See what a difference telling a story makes? One last example. Kelly approaches every day with creativity. You know what I'm going to say next. Show me how. Show me what she's done. She used her graphic design background to create custom books for everyone in the house using the things they like to help them practice communication skills. The books make the guys feel special, and it's helped them communicate better with Kelly and each other. See how we've created a total picture by showing us what Kelly has done and the outcome that it led to for the people that she serves. That is a winning DSP nomination. Let's summarize some do's and don'ts to keep in mind as you write your entries. Do tell us stories. Follow that 1, 2, 3 pattern. Describe the trait, tell us the action, and link it to the result. Tell us how the actions help the person served. If you do that every time, you'll tell great stories that we can judge well. You want to make sure when describing accomplishments that you describe accomplishments of the DSP that have helped the person or the people served. We'll often read nominations that have a lot of extra information about accomplishments, personal, athletic, with kids, education-wise, and while these are all very interesting, unfortunately it doesn't give us a whole lot to judge because we're really looking at what they've done in their role as a DSP to help the individuals that they serve. Finally, make sure you answer every question. I recommend taking enough time to work on this so that you can work on it as a separate document that you can then cut and paste when you're ready to submit. Save it frequently, work on it over time. That way you're not sitting there rushed at the computer trying to get all of the answers in last minute. A couple of things that you don't want to do. Don't describe attributes, characteristics, education, or career background of the DSP unless it is somehow relevant. Unless you can link any of those things to a positive outcome for an individual served, it's really not relevant to this contest. Don't use full names of the people served or reveal confidential health information. We ask in your nomination that you use first names only or that you use initials to talk about the individuals. If you have any questions about your obligations under HIPAA, please contact your supervisor. But we ask that you do your best not to reveal any confidential health information in your nomination. Along those lines, we also ask that you not identify your agency in your answers. We'll have all of your information in that initial contact information form. Please, in your entries, try not to mention the agency that you work for. That's just to help us make sure that as we're judging that we're not unduly influenced by knowing what agency you work for. And lastly, make sure that you don't repeat the same language for more than one nominee. Unfortunately, we've seen it happen too often where we read very similar entries on a couple of different nominations. And we understand this happens because people are in a rush, they feel pressure to get a nomination in last minute, and so sometimes they'll cut and paste a little too freely and turn in a couple of nearly identical nominations. That's not fair to the DSPs who are being nominated, so We ask that you plan ahead, allow yourself enough time to write a strong nomination for the DSP because they do deserve that recognition. Finally, we're on to step 3, submit. So you've done your pre-work, you've written your answers, you have them all ready to go. Here are your final steps. Read back over what you wrote for each entry. Did you answer the question asked? Did you tell a 3-part story? And did you give us information that's unique to your DSP? If someone that's familiar with your DSP were to be reading this, would they know that it's about them, rather about any other DSP out there? It's a good idea if you have time to have someone else read it over too. Sometimes they can make suggestions on ways you can make it even stronger and give your DSP an even better chance. And I can't emphasize enough, please double check the name spelling. We do use the information that you provide us when we send out communications, when we publish the recipients in our Recognizing Excellence magazine, and when we order the physical awards. So please make sure that you've spelled the DSP's name correctly. Okay, now you're all ready to go. You have your entries written. It's time to enter them into the online form. The link to the website is on the screen here. You can also navigate to it from our homepage. So from www.anchor.org, you can click up towards the top. There's a gray tab that says National Advocacy Campaign. If you click on that, that takes you to a separate page where you'll see as the first link this nomination form. You put in each of the question entries, you upload the affirmation letter, and then you hit submit. And then pat yourself on the back because you did great.
Now you've got all the tools you need to write a winning DSP nomination. If you have any questions, you can contact myself or Esme Graywall. I'll put our information up on the screen. Thanks so much for watching this presentation.